If you're a Final Fantasy fan, or a Final Fantasy VII fan, you've probably seen the release date announcement trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth by now. And, oh boy, there is so much packed into this 3-minute trailer, so I'm just gonna stop wasting time and get right into the analysis.
Ending.
So here we see Midgar is destroyed, and then it cuts to Zack carrying Cloud with Elmira chilling out in the background. So clearly we're in Zack's timeline, or as I like to describe it, his current of the life stream. This coincides with the previous trailer, which depicted the party as being dead, and this is likely due to the tornado at the end of Remake.
That's what everyone's saying.
This sky, I don't like it.
Ready to fire, sir.
Welcome to the New World Order. Fire!
So this is obviously Junon, and you can see the Highwind in some of these shots, and damn, it looks massive. Rufus then orders an artilleryman to fire the Mako cannon, and it gets fired. You might be questioning what they're firing at, as they never fire the Mako cannon this early in the original game. There's nothing depicting what the target would be in this trailer, and personally, I don't think he's firing at anything. I think it's just part of the celebration, and Rufus is just trying to show off his military prowess here, nothing more. It's also worth noting that Heidegger is nowhere to be found in these shots. If you remember, at the end of Remake, Heidegger was a bit reluctant to call Rufus president, so it will be interesting to see how they handle their relationship in this game. It's entirely possible that Heidegger isn't even participating at all in this event, whereas he certainly was in the original game. In this next shot, we see Cloud leading the pack of soldiers in the parade. You can clearly tell it's Cloud, given the gigantic Buster Sword he's carrying. I mean, his face also looks like Cloud, but I think the Buster Sword is clue enough who it is. The bottom left also has button prompts indicating that, just like in the original, this section is a playable minigame. Another thing to note is the UI at the top. There's an icon that has a sword and ring, likely indicating the location of a shop. This is noteworthy as Remake didn't have a feature like this, which tells me they're putting a lot of focus on exploration in this game.
Just close your...
Next up, we see Cloud running around an environment that appears to be some kind of ruined Mako reactor, which is interesting. You'll also notice at the bottom left a Call Chocobo button prompt. So it looks like you can call a Chocobo at any time if you're traversing out in the field, so that's cool. Next, we see Cloud running across a bridge with some buildings off in the distance, and it appears to be in an enclosed space. This is most likely at the bottom of Junon, as indicated by the giant metal wall to Cloud's left. You should also note that there is no prompt to call a Chocobo here, which makes sense since this is most certainly a town area.
Listen, tell me you can't hear that.
Next up is one of the areas you've all been waiting for, Cosmo Canyon. This is 100% confirmed since the sign literally says Cosmo Canyon on it, just like in the original game. You can also see the giant telescope at the top, and it's worth noting that, again, there's no option to call a Chocobo here because you're in a town. Also worth noting, all the icons at the top indicating the location of various shops and points of interest.
Her rallying cry.
In this clip, you can see a battle play out. The UI looks pretty similar to the original game, except you have these 5 vertical lines underneath their ATB gauge. It looks like Tifa's is filled up, but the other characters' are not. I haven't quite figured out what those lines indicate, as I couldn't find any instances of them filling or depleting throughout this trailer. The location they're in is rather interesting, though. There appear to be a bunch of abandoned old ships, and in the background you can see a tower or lighthouse or something. It also looks like there might be a little town there, but it's hard to make out exactly what that is. It's also difficult to pinpoint where in the world this is located. It could be near Junon or Cosmo Canyon, but the best location I could think of is that it's actually the western continent where Wutai exists. Part of me doesn't think that because this trailer only seems to showcase events up to the Shinra Mansion in Nibelheim, but they did say that events might not occur in the same order that they did in the original game, so you never really know.
Planet runs out of energy.
In this next clip, we see the party fighting in what appears to be a tropical area. This is almost certainly near Costa del Sol if I had to wager a guess.
It and everything on it dies.
We can.
Here you can see next to the command menu a red materia icon, which obviously means summon. It's still unclear as to how summons are triggered in this game, but it's certainly not the same as the first game, and my guess is you have more agency over their use this time around. But watch this.
Overcome our fate.
See as the camera pans, this icon at the very top moves exactly in accordance with it, and it's clearly pointing at the watchtower in the background. I'm not going to say that this game is open world per se, but the fact that it has these icons to mark particular landmarks makes it clear that if you were worried about this game being extraordinarily linear, you will be in for a treat here.
Am I the same as these monsters? Am I even human?
That clip is definitely from the calm flashback scenario, perfectly in accordance with the original FF7. Nothing more to really say about that.
Okay, we're looking for Sephiroth. Think you can find him?
Oh, Sephiroth, you say?
Next, we're introduced to Ket Shi. This is likely when you first meet him, and I gotta say the voice actor playing him is nailing the role here. What's interesting to note is Barrett is here with Cloud. I believe in the original game you got to pick who you wanted the gold saucer with. Either that or it was based on your reputation with certain characters. I can't remember exactly, but it will be interesting to see if Barrett is actually intended to be in the scene or if he's there by player choice in this instance.
So you heeded the call too, did you?
Here we get a good look at how Ket Shi fights. He pulls up the shortcuts menu and then selects an ability called Let's Ride. And afterwards, Ket Shi pulls out the big fat Moogle he rides atop of, and immediately you see what appears to be a Moogle icon next to the ATB bar. This clearly indicates that there are two different states that Ket Shi has. One is his cat mode, and the other is Moogle mode, and there's likely differences in their playstyles.
What are you talking about?
As you
And we see the party riding through the Coral Desert in the buggy, which is super dope if you ask me.
can see, your brothers down there are having a little...
And then this. This is one of the most shocking things that I did not expect to see in this game at all, maybe in part 3, but certainly not in part 2, which are the different colored chocobos. First we see the black chocobo and then the green chocobo. If you remember in the original FF7, there were different colored chocobos, all of which had specific attributes for traversal. For instance, the blue chocobo could traverse across rivers, green chocobos could travel up mountains, black chocobos could do both, and gold chocobos could do everything the black chocobo could do, but also travel across oceans, which effectively made it the ultimate chocobo. It seems they're not copying exactly what they did in the original, but they're still using the same concept. Here we see Cloud riding a black chocobo going up the side of a cliff. You can also see that there are red arrow markings here. It's possible that all of the cliff sides that you can go up with a black chocobo are marked as such in the same manner throughout the game. The green chocobo, on the other hand, appears to be able to fly instead. If the other evidence provided in this trailer wasn't enough to convince you that there's going to be a pretty massive world to explore, this should certainly convince you, and if it doesn't, then I don't think anything will at this point.
get together.
In this clip, we see Cloud riding around on what appears to be a Segway in a beach costume. My initial reaction to this was that it confirmed costume changes, but then I rewatched the trailer and thought that this was actually teenage Cloud. Then I started thinking this is some new part of the flashback sequence, but after much closer examination, I reverted back to my original thought, which is that this is, in fact, normal Cloud riding around on a Segway. It just so happens that when Cloud is in this outfit, he looks a bit more scrawny without his poofy pants he normally wears. This also appears to be playable given the button indicators at the bottom left, and while it's possible it could be used in a minigame, the fact that you can dismount would mean that you can definitely just travel this way as well, at least for a part of the game anyway. It's also interesting to note the location he's at. The tree indicates he's somewhere tropical, and the fact that there are surfboards in the back makes me think it's probably Costa del Sol, but I also don't remember Costa del Sol looking quite like this. Not to mention that big tower, castle-looking thing in the distance is not something I remember being a part of Costa del Sol. So it's entirely possible that this is a new location altogether, If not, then it's probably in the same region, at least, as Costa del Sol.
They're our best chance of finding Sephiroth.
Yeah. I ask because I suspect there's soldiers suffering from cellular degradation.
So here it looks like Cloud has met a doctor who has figured out that the Robe Men were essentially soldiers who are now suffering from cellular degradation. I don't recall this character being in any other Final Fantasy VII game, but get this. If you turn the captions on YouTube, it says his name is Doc Sharon. So we know what his name is. It's also very hard to tell where exactly this is in the game. There's a background, but the light is so glaring it's near impossible to tell what it looks like. If I had to wager a guess, it would be Junon.
Do not be deceived. You know the truth. Trust in me.
Then in what's likely the same lab, Cloud has another vision of Sephiroth, which is more than likely just Sephiroth toying with him all over again, just like he did in the first game. And then there's the clip of the infamous Midgar Zolom.
Come on!
Also, the boss at Junon. Then we see Barret and Yuffie using a team attack. It's still unclear as to whether those vertical segments deplete when using a team attack or not, but we can conclude based on this footage that team attacks are not dependent on ATB, as Barret doesn't even have a single ATB bar, but Yuffie's is completely full here. Here we see Aerith and Ketshi performing a team attack. What's interesting to note here is that Ketshi's triangle attack is mount, but he has the little Moogle icon indicating that the Moogle has been called out. So it might mean that even though the Moogle is available to use, you can still use him in isolation. Ketshi's a bit perplexing to figure out exactly how he plays. You'll also notice that these purple icons appear above both of their MP bars. I don't know exactly what this means. My only guess is it's some kind of a buff that occurred as a result of their team attack. Since it's above the MP bar, it might be kind of like a refresh, as in their MP auto-regenerates over time, but otherwise it's unclear what this actually means.
On me.
Next, we see Cloud and Sephiroth clearly during the Calm flashback and are definitely inside of Mount Nebel. What's interesting here is that the monster is clearly the Materia Keeper, which, if you remember, you don't actually fight the Materia Keeper during the Calm flashback in the original game. You do fight him during the present, though, when you reach Mount Nebel. So that's definitely different from the original game. And then, what? I guess, Sephiroth and Cloud be looking like they have the hots for each other here during their team attack. This is definitely going to inspire some yaoi fan art, I can tell. Then we see some clips of various summons in the game. First is Alexander, then Jada, and then Odin.
Look!
And finally, what you've all been waiting for, the Gold Saucer. Looks like Rodea is back to perform at the Gold Saucer, and then we see Yuffie in a different getup, so clearly this is some new scenario we don't know anything about yet. Can't wait to find out how all this goes down. And then this must be Dio, who is the owner of the Gold Saucer from the original game. Naturally, most of the mini-games from the original game are present and accounted for. First is the big one, Chocobo Racing. You can see Cloud pick up these winged fruit things as he picks them up, and his speed goes from 6 to 7 to 8. The virtual fighting arena is back. The way they did this is genius, actually. Instead of little holographic versions of the characters fighting, they went with toy-like figures of the characters that resemble their original polygon cells from OG FF7. And of course, the G-Bike minigame is here in all of its glory. It appears to be similar to how it played in Remake, but it appears you have an extra ability mapped to the X button now.
Excuse me. Could you look after my friend? Just for a bit.
Here we see Zack hand an unconscious Cloud to Kyrie as she acts reluctant to do so. It's worth noting that both Zack and Cloud are dirty, indicating that they've been through some shit recently. Then we see a clip that appears to be from the parade at Junon of a hooded man with a mustache and goatee. I honestly don't know who this character is, and don't think he's appeared in any other Final Fantasy VII games that I can think of. Considering the way he's dressed, it's almost like he's trying to disguise himself as one of the Sephiroth clones.
A weapon?
Tutelary creatures, set only to appear when the planet is in grave danger.
Next, we see Tifa floating in what kind of looks like the life stream or something of the sort, and then Red 13 starts explaining to her what weapons are, as a weapon seems to pass Tifa by. It's too early for weapons to actually appear in this game. I'm hazarding a guess that this scene is actually just a virtual show that Bugenhagen puts on display when you speak to him at Cosmo Canyon.
Who dares disturb my slumber?
And of course, they half showed and half teased us with Vincent towards the end of the trailer. We don't really get to see his face very well, but the design on his casket looks pretty neat. Almost looks like there's a three-headed dog. Kind of like a Cerberus, if you know what I mean.
It's upon us. The reunion. When worlds merge. I'm waiting, Cloud.
And then the trailer ends with Sephiroth saying, "It's upon us. The reunion. When worlds merge. I'm waiting, Cloud." There are some people that seem to think that the worlds are already merged, and they're clearly wrong as indicated by the ending of Remake when Zack and Cloud literally cross paths, but don't even see each other. But I do think there's some merit to the idea. This line that Sephiroth says here almost clearly means his goal is to merge both the timelines that Zack and Cloud exist in, and that it will occur during the reunion, which is probably at the end of this game. So no, the worlds aren't currently merged, but if this line has anything to go by, it probably means that they will at the end of this game. So that's it for this video. What did you guys think of the trailer? Are you hyped for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Do you think I got some things wrong with my analysis? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. Thanks for watching.